What's up, everybody? Showstopper here. Okay, so this is my third video discussing the June update, patch notes, and my thoughts on it and why it basically results in a massive nerf to killers and a significant buff to survivors. Okay, so for this video, I would like to focus on the changes to the meta perks. Now, if before, in previous videos, we discussed the change of gen speed and the quality of life changes that were made to the killer's base kits. And I can see how somebody might have been, misled or on initial view thought like, oh, this is a big buff to killers or whatever. However, when we look at the changes to the meta perks and even the buffs to the non-meta perks, but particularly right now, the changes to the meta perks, it is clear, even from a facial review, that this is a big nerf to killers, huge buff to survivors, and we'll get into why it was buff, but basically survivors got a much better end of the stick on this. So let's take a look. First thing I want to point out, if no one's noticed, the amount of killer perks that were changed, meta perks that were changed, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 killer perks. Survivors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6 meta perks for survivors, 7 for killers. So off the bat, we're getting hit with the stick harder, right off the bat. And when I say I'm saying killers, I'm a killer main. I like to think that my views are somewhat objective because I'm looking for the better health of the game. Notice I'm also mentioned I'm not a fan of increasing gen speed, but whatever. Yeah, so killers right away, more of their perks were touched, meta perks were touched. But with that said, let's take a look at the perks. So I did my last video discussed more in depth the killer perks. So I'm not going to go into each of those in depth right now, but let's just take a look and quick review. Barbecue and chili, no in-game change was made to it. So it's the same for in-game purposes. They changed the blood point gain, but for use in-game, which is what we're focusing on, it remains the same. Okay. Hex Ruin, nerfed significantly. Pop Goes the Weasel, it's a shell of its former self. Corrupt Intervention, another big nerf. Tinkerer, nerfed into the ground. Noed, nerfed into the ground. Pain Resonance took a significant nerf. There is no argument that can be made, no reasonable argument that can be made to say anything to the contrary that killer perks, the meta perks, took a significant hit. I mean, if you were running these perks before, you now have to sit back and consider, is it worth running anymore? And the answer to a lot of these perks are no. It no longer makes sense running a couple of these. But now let's take a look at the survivor perks changes, meta perks. First is Dead Hard. Dead Hard was not nerfed. Dead Hard was reworked. There's a difference between a nerf, a buff, and a rework. Dead Hard was reworked. In fact, as many discussions that others have had, and I think that if someone sits here and evaluate this perk and the new form is going to come in, an argument can be made that it's stronger than it was before. It's probably on the same line. If it's a nerf, maybe it's a slight nerf, or it's possibly stronger. For the purpose of the video, I think we can just all agree that this is closer to a rework. It's no longer like, well, you know what? It's not worth running anymore. It's still a strong perk. By any account, it's still a strong perk. Next perk, Decisive Strike. This nerf is not that big. Let's get into this. So Decisive Strike got hit in 2 places. The first is that the stun, where do we go? Moving forward, Decisive Strike will now deactivate once the exit gates are powered. That's one. And two, the stun duration has been reduced from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. Okay, so what does this mean in practice, in actual games? Once the exit gates are powered, D-Strike's deactivated. Okay, guess what, survivors? No more free escape. No more, hey, I'm on the hook, unhook me, I got D-Strike, don't worry, and you just run out because the killer can't do anything because you have D-Strike. Okay, that part's been nerfed, which let's be honest, even if you're a survivor main, that's good. This is good for the health of the game. It's taking away a free escape. The second aspect, the stun duration has been reduced from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. In practice, this I do not feel is a significant nerf. Why? Similar to a point that I made in 2 videos ago when I discussed the killer improvements, the survivor will still get to the safe zone. Nerf from 5 to 3 seconds. That 3 seconds is still enough for the survivor to get to another tile, a pallet, or a vault. Once they get there, they're safe and the chase commences if the killer is still chasing them. So that drop from 5 to 3 is no longer like, oh, it's useless now because once I D-strike him, he just turns around and hits me. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some killers who will benefit from that, like Nerf, Blight, etc. But to be honest, those killers didn't need it anyway, because Nerf, if she wanted to kill you, she was just going to blink to you and kill you anyway. And Blight, he was just going to and then fuck you up anyway. So it doesn't really affect them. So that part of the nerf's not significant in practice, because the survivor's still going to be able to get to the safe area. The only, again, meaningful change to this is now that it deactivates once the exit gates are powered. Let me ask you a question. If you were running D-Strike before, is this making you not want to run D-Strike? Will you now say, you know what? I don't get a free escape at the exit gate, and it's been changed from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. It's not worth running anymore. No. If you ran D-Strike, you're still running it. If you used it, you're using it. It's the same perk. You don't get the free escape at the end. Okay, that's one thing. But if you were scared of, oh, the killer's going to tunnel me, or whatever your reasoning was behind running this broken perk, you're still going to run it. Was it nerfed? Yes. How significant? Not that significant. Just being honest. It was not nerfed to the degree that it's no longer worth running. Whereas the killer perks across the board is the opposite. Okay. So we discussed Dead Hard, rework, potential buff. D-Strike, slight nerf, still worth running. Borrow time. Oh my God, this motherfucker right here. Borrow time. This is absurd. This is absolutely absurd. If I've never seen a survivor bias before, here we go. Borrow time. Let's read this for a minute. While the overall duration with borrowed time is longer than before, we expect that having a lighter version in the base kit will cause the usage rate to drop. Let's understand that a part of this update, one of the big driving factors behind this update, was to shake up the meta. There's certain meta perks that are run at a much higher rate than other perks. And typically, to address that, especially in terms of the killer, is the perks got nerfed to de-incentivize people from running it. Borrowed time, survivors are given a lighter version of it in their base kit to incentivize them to run something else. What? Stop and think about that. Let's look at Corrupt. Corrupt Intervention was nerfed. Hey, you down a survivor, you lose it if you down a survivor, it's gone. Okay. Pop Goes the Weasel. It's been nerfed. They nerfed the perk to make someone not want to run it. For borrowed time, they're giving it to you base kit to lower usage rates. How about if they went and looked at Corrupt and said, hey, you know what? Too many people are running Corrupt, so we're going to make 1 minute of Corrupt base kit, therefore people don't want to run it because they have a base kit. That's what they did with borrowed time. How about with Pop Goes the Weasel? They said, okay, we're going to make it so that you have it a lighter version. You get 10%. Therefore, you don't have to run it. Or how about with NOED? NOED, you get it automatically for the first 30 seconds or 1 minute after the last gen pops to get it. That's the approach they took with Borrowed Time. It's like, hey, to de-incentivize you from running it, you get it base kit now. What? That's ridiculous. As a matter of fact, the other side to it is, and if you run it, it's now stronger than it was before. Listen to this logic. There's meta perks, and they don't want people running them as much to such a high degree. Therefore, they're giving you it base kit, but if you decide to run it, it is now stronger. We did not see this treatment with any of the killer perks, but we see it now with one of the strongest survivor perks. Continuing. Iron Will. Yes, Iron Will was nerfed, thank God. Iron Will. Iron Will. Who needs skill when you've got your Iron Will? One more time. Iron Will. Iron Will. Who needs skill when you've got your Iron Will? Iron Will has been nerfed. Thank God they heard my prayers. Okay, yes, Iron Will's been nerfed. Great, awesome. Let's not talk about lightweight buff, which is Iron Will 2.0. But okay, Iron Will has been nerfed. Self-care has been nerfed. Note though, the perk in itself has been nerfed. However, you mentioned you see how they say we were surprised to find that its usage peaks in the highest skill matches. The reason why is because when the players in the higher skill lobbies, higher MMR use it, they're using it for a very particular reason with other things. For example, the Metal of Man, self-care, and botany knowledge combo for Swifts. But they buffed botany knowledge, which erases this nerf. So yeah, it's been nerfed on itself. I mean, it's going to mess up the rank 20 just installed Claudette, who's in the corner self-caring. But when you were running it with other things like botany knowledge or whatever, it's not as significant nerfs. But whatever, it's a nerf. It's a nerf. But if you were running it in those situations where you paired it with botany and other things, you're probably still going to run it. If you're running it before by itself, you might not run it. You might still run it. Whatever. Overall, the nerf though, let's say. Okay. And Spine Chill was nerfed. Another perk I'm so glad was nerfed. Spine Chill basically had two purposes. One was the Vault build, which I think was probably a broken combination. I mean, just the impact that it has on a chase, especially since the killer can't. Well, it's not readily apparent that the survivor has a Vault build, so it's kind of harder to gauge what you should be doing in chase until you realize that. Whereas, let's say something else like Sprint Burst, you see right away, okay, he has Sprint Burst. Dead Hard, you see them using, you know, okay, he has Dead Hard. Or let's say the killer has Bamboozle when he vaults. Yo, the killer has Bamboozle. You know, you can tell these things right away. Spine Chill with Resilience for the Vault build wasn't as readily noticeable, but whatever. Anyway, say the Vault build was incredibly strong. That's been significantly weakened. And then also the second purpose of Spine Chill was to do something that I don't think should be in the game anyway, which was a survivor can run one perk and counter a killer's power. You have a stealth killer, someone has Spine Chill, you took away a big part of that killer's power by running one perk. That's absurd if you ask me. So any stealth killer you pick, hey, you lost a lot of strength just because the survivor has one perk. I hope that they do some similar treatment where an item can cancel out a killer's power, like the flashlights, what they do to Hag's traps. It's kind of, I mean, if you're picking Hag, you load in lobby and they have 2-3 flashlights, which is commonplace nowadays in Dead by Daylight, then Hag is significantly weaker, if at all just useless. Well, just run Franklin. Yeah, okay, so we should run one perk. We should run one of our 4 perks, a quarter of our power, to counter an item. Anyway, yeah, so let's take a look back at that. The killer perks, gutted. I mean, barbecue's the same, but ruin, gutted. Pop, gutted. Corrupt, gutted. Tinkerer, gutted. Noed, gutted. Pain resonance, I won't say gutted, but significantly nerfed. Survivor perks, a rework that might be stronger. Essentially the same perk. Minor nerf, but essentially the same perk. If you were running it, you're still going to run it. Borrow time actually got buffed and given as base kit. Iron Will, okay, a nerf. Self-care, let's say a nerf. Spine chill, let's say a nerf. Now let me ask you another question. In the course of a Dead by Daylight game, when the survivors picking their loadout and their perks, and killers picking their loadout and their perks, and you go in game, and the perks have an impact on the game, would you say that self-care, spine chill, or even Iron Will was a very strong perk in my opinion, but what I'm saying is this: Iron Will, self-care, spine chill, do you think they were as important or as significant to the survivors' survival as these killer perks were to a killer's success? Can you put what's those 3 perks again? What were they? They were spine chill, self-care, and Iron Will. Let's say those 3 perks. Do you think those 3 perks were on the same level as Ruin, Pop Goes the Weasel, Corrupt Intervention, Tinkerer to a lesser extent, but Tinkerer, Noed, Pain Resonance? Those perks are not in the same category. Now, Dead Hard is, Decisive Strike is, and so is Borrow Time. Those are on the same level as those killer perks. But what did we see with those perks? A rework that's probably a buff. Essentially the same perk, just you don't get a free escape at the end. Again, 3 seconds is enough to get safe. And Borrow Time got buffed. This is absurd. This is actually absurd. 7 perks from Killer were looked at. 6 perks from Survivor. The perks that was picked from Killer were way more significant on in-game performance. And they all took massive nerfs. These things were not. The Survivor perks did not receive the same treatment. Mind you, this is before we get into the 9 Meta Perk Changes. Because we can look at this. I mean, some of the Killer perks, yeah. It was some good, some good buffs. Some of them had some good buffs. Some of them, most of them, if you weren't running them before, it's not enough to make you change your mind. Whereas when I look at these Survivor changes, some of these things downright scare me. Just off the record, I'm saying off the record is one of the perks that I think anybody can agree that, where's it at? This perk is downright scary right now. This is possibly one of the strongest perks introduced into the game as it stands now. The things that survivors are going to be able to do with this perk are insane. We discussed a couple of those on stream. I'm not going to go over it right now, and I also don't want to give survivors too many ideas. But what this perk's going to do is going to be absurd. Botany knowledge. It's only a matter of time until survivors realize that with botany knowledge, a green medkit, and certain add-ons, they're going to be able to heal mid-chase reliably. In the middle of chase, they're going to be able to heal. This is a 50% increase to heal time. Plus the efficiency with the items, but a green medkit they're going to be able to heal mid-chase with botany knowledge. That's going to be crazy. Off the record. Again, I'm not going to go into all of them. I'm going to focus mostly on the, lightweight. Look, it's Iron Will 2.0. I want to focus mostly on the changes on the meta perks. But just wanted to bring out, Survivors also got the way better end of the stick with the non-meta perks that was changed. All right, hope everyone enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like, subscribe, follow, notifications, drums, bells, whistles, all that good stuff. It's your boy Show. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out. Peace.